Well, hello, it's Adaire Palmer here, and I am on the broadcast from MyTimeTV.LIVE, which is a very special event because we've been doing test broadcastings from this channel for some time, and this is the first, I guess, the inaugural real live interview broadcast that we're doing on the MyTime TV. So this is really exciting. And I was just talking to my guest that I'm bringing on just shortly, and he was saying that we do, actually he asked me, I thought it was gorgeous, he asked me, do you have a audience of more than 1 million? And I'm thinking, yeah, we will. Absolutely, we will. Everyone starts from zero, and My Time TV is saying hi. It must be somebody else. I have, we've got a whole heap of people lined up to present their shows on this channel, and they would come up as MyTimeTV.LIVE, and so they're saying hi. It could be, you might have to identify yourself. There's probably, I think there's 15 or 20 people waiting in the wings to schedule their shows and just jump on and have their own shows. I suspect it may be Paula. If it is, hello Paula, and welcome to the show. Using the BeLive.TV. Oh, it's Savitri. Hey, hello Savitri, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Excellent to see you. Using the BeLive.TV platform, it is a pretty amazing platform for doing live shows on Facebook, for streaming live broadcasts. It's one of the newer platforms. There are several platforms around that you can use, and BeLive.TV is one that I think it's been around for maybe 6 or 8 months, perhaps a little bit longer, but I've been fairly heavily involved with their community, and I really like using this platform because you can do all sorts of wonderful, weird and amazing things, like having guests join you on the show. That added a new dimension to any live streaming when we first started doing that a couple of years ago, and also screen sharing, and you can add photos from your Facebook albums. You can, like I said, share screen. There is so much that you can do now with BeLive TV. If you want to, you can have your logo. You can actually put your logo up here, which I haven't done yet, but for My Time TV, but we'll be doing in future shows. For future shows, we'll have the logo. If you're a small business owner and you have your own show here, you'll be able to put your own branding and your own logo on the BeLive TV if you have your subscription to the platform. Amazing platform. Now, I wanted to again welcome you all. It's Adaire Palmer here, and really it is our inaugural viewing show for broadcasting for MyTimeTV.LIVE, and I'm really pleased to say today that I have a very special guest called Andrew Tobin. Andrew is from Horizon Real Estate, and I've asked him to join us because it's been a bit of a journey with our investment property, and we were looking for a real estate agent that we could trust to help us sell the property. And Andrew's turned up at just the right time, and he's given us, I believe, the right advice in the right way that's made us feel very, very comfortable working with him to sell our property. And I'm actually going to bring him in. I'm just going to close out a couple of actually, I might even close that whole screen because it's a bit distracting having this I've got 2 screens, and it's sort of the other screen get notifications pop up. Haven't figured out how to shut them down yet, but I can on my phone. So anyway, I'm bringing Andrew into the broadcast, and you'll be notified, Andrew. It should say 3, 2, 1 and pop you into the broadcast there. Welcome.
Hi, Adaire. You look wonderful today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And you're out and about in your car, I see. It's amazing.
Well, I'm in my mobile office. I prefer to think of it as my very comfortable mobile office.
That's awesome, because this is what we call the wannabe. People want to have like the laptop lifestyles, but you don't even need a laptop for that these days. You just need a mobile device like a you know, your phone or your iPad, or, you know, and you're good to go.
I certainly am.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll just show your name here. There we go. That's great. So, Andrew, like I said before, we do have a property that we have engaged you to sell for us. So that's in the interest of transparency, and I'll put that up front. But I did actually find that we interviewed several real estate agents to help us, and I have to say that you are not only head and shoulders above the others that we interviewed, but you are a standout by a country mile, if you remember that old expression. It was the way that you, the customer service, and the manner that you talked to us about the property, and about helped us see some things about the property that we couldn't see before, and re-engaged our enthusiasm for it. And I think that was just a absolute gift that you have. And I just thought, well, it would be a great opportunity for you to share some of your expertise with some viewers. And there's people watching now. There will be more also that will catch this as a recording when it's not live anymore. So it's one of those things that's you can get the rerun instantly. You don't have to wait for it to be rebroadcast. You can just jump on and tap into it at any time. So Andrew, I had a couple of questions for you, and
Sure.
one of the main things that I was thinking myself, and also that I do hear people asking when they go to sell their properties, is when is a good time to sell?
The best time to sell is when it's the best time for you. A lot of people think that selling a property is essentially about the finances. And while the money is very, very important, there's nothing more important than the mindset. Why are you selling? Do you need to sell? When is the best time for you to sell? The best time is when it suits you. Your circumstances dictate the best time, not the weather, not the seasons, not the market. It's you. It has to be all about the vendor, all about you.
And that was probably the thing that struck me the most when you did say that to us. And, you know, I thought, well, we actually hadn't heard that before. I'd heard different things, like, you know, in spring when the flowers are blooming, or if you've got a pool, you have to sell in summer, or, you know, I'm sure that there are those strategies. But I actually found it was quite refreshing to hear that the best time to sell is when when we're ready to sell. And that was, and I think, you know, is it, you know, tell me a bit more about the finances. How does that work? Like, do people say, oh, like there's going to be a 10% rise in property prices next year or next week? So,
well, the one thing I know for certain is that I have no knowledge of the future. I can tell you what happened in the past. I have no way of telling you what's going to happen. If I'm talking about the future, it's an element of guesswork by looking at the past and looking at trends. So you look at trends and say the trends indicate. There's no guarantee that there's a likelihood that this will happen. Why? Because that's what happened in the past. No guarantee it's going to happen again. You know, if it was going to happen again, like the prices shot up, say, from the 6 days to the 8 days, and we're unlikely to see an increase like that. And we know that because the trends since then have been much slower increases. So we certainly go by trends, but I emphasize there are no guarantees.
Yes. And that's, yeah, it's like, it's one of those things that, because I work with small businesses around Facebook too, and people say, well, what's this going to mean in the future for me? And I say, well, my best guess is, but my crystal ball is actually broken. So, so unless I'm working with a psychic, and those guys, I could ask them. So
have you assessed what sort of percentage of accuracy psychics get? I think you'll find it's pretty low.
I think if you can read people, you can actually pretty much predict what people's behaviour is going to be. If you can read them, you learn to read them pretty well.
Yes. So what people need to realize is that selling a house is a huge emotional investment on their part. And
Yes.
I mean, sure, there's money involved. We all know that. But the emotional investment is what people often neglect and forget or don't realize. And then they're shocked by the amount of emotion they have to put into the process. And it's all about respecting the process. I often say that if you say, oh, do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? No, of course you don't. Of course you don't. But then you can go out and buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
All your numbers might align. You end up with a lottery, and then what you do doesn't matter. But most people don't win the lottery, and then you have to respect the process.
So what would your experience be, or your advice be, for people who are doing, because the emotions can range from desperation to get rid of a place to don't want to sell but have to there's a whole range of
Absolutely, yes.
So
you're totally correct.
So would you have some advice or some wisdom to share around what people can do to help themselves be a bit more objective about how and what they're doing and how they go about it?
Yes, the first step is to explore your reasons for selling. I've sat with vendors who've been sobbing while they've signed the papers to sell their house because they've been very, very happy in their home. But they realized for personal circumstances, they had no choice but to sell and to move on. And I empathize with them, and I say, I wish I could take away your pain, but I can't, because that's a personal journey that you're being forced to go through. But I'll try to make it as agreeable, as pleasant, and as much fun as I can.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, like you said, you can't take away their pain, but you can try and lessen it or be a bit of a buffer for them.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Because when I talk about, there are three states that you can be: optimistic, pessimistic, and realistic. When you're optimistic, you think you're going to get twice as much as your house is worth. You're pessimistic, you think you're going to get half as much as it's worth. And you're realistic, you're on the ball with your expectations. Now, obviously, being realistic means there's less emotional involvement, but yes, you cannot help waking up one day and thinking, "Ooh, my house is worth twice as much as I'm asking for it." Just as there'll be days you wake up thinking, "Maybe I'm asking twice as much as I should be." You've just got to ignore those emotions and value and respect the process. Go through the process, because what I promise you is there are people out there who want your house. All our job is to find the people who want your house at a price you're happy to accept. Which is a beautiful segue into, how do you figure that out? How do you figure out the value of the, what's too expensive, what's not expensive, what's too overvalued or undervalued? I mean, the property across the road from us was on the market for quite some time because I think they really wanted a lot more than what it was worth according to the value. But I'm interested in how you work that out. Well, you work it out, first of all, by looking what recent sales have been. If your house is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, you look at what sales have happened for 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom houses in that area, and you look at what's for sale, because you have to look at what's happened and you have to look at the competition. If there's suddenly 18 houses in your street, all 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, selling for considerably less than what your house is selling, you're going to have to wait and you're going to struggle to sell your house. So it's looking at the competition, looking at the past results, and then what we do, once we have that information, we keep it in our heads. We don't tell the buyer, because essentially it's a game between the vendor, the person who's selling the house, and the buyer, the person who wants it. Our strategy is to not tell the buyer the price of the house. We generally sell by what we call expressions of interest. That means more work for us, because it annoys buyers to not be told the price. But what I want the buyer to do is to tell me and the vendor how much they're prepared to pay for the house. Because once they nominate a price, what I know is that is their bottom price. And then my job is to get them up from there. And I think that's a really, to me, it's unconventional. It's a bit of a different way of doing things. I've only been involved in buying and selling a few houses over the years, but I've always seen there's either a price or a price range or something like that. But just to say, offer us what you think it's worth to you,
it's a whole different ball game. I think it's
we guide them. For instance, if they came in with a price that was ridiculously low, we'd say, well, you know, you got a better chance of winning the lottery than getting the house at that price.
Yeah.
But what I want people to commit to putting their offer on paper, because essentially what we want people to do is to emotionally connect with the property. And people emotionally connect with the property when they've made an offer on it. Because there are plenty of people who are curious, and that's cool, because that's the nature of the business. People come in, and there are plenty of tire kickers, and that's fine also, because you can convert tire kickers into real buyers. But I want as many people as possible to come and have a look at a property, so that I have as many offers as possible, so I can leverage one against the other. So what we do, while we have no illusion that we're working for the vendor, and the aim of the process is to get as high an offer as possible on the house, we befriend buyers. We befriend buyers because we want to encourage them to make as good an offer on the house as possible. And that's reading people and conversing with people and connecting with people, and that's and I'm lucky in that regard, because I really enjoy meeting people, and I enjoy developing relationships with people, and I develop relationships with all my buyers and certainly all the vendors.
So that's pretty awesome, and I think that it certainly shows a level of transparency that you've got that I haven't seen in other real estate agents, certainly not the ones that the others that we did interview. So that's pretty awesome, because you know that while you're working for the vendor, you're not out to make enemies of the buyers, because you do have to get something that's acceptable to both parties. So I think that's
Not at all, because what people have to remember, and why I'm constantly nice to buyers, is that nobody gets anywhere without a buyer coming on board. You don't get your money, I don't get paid. It just becomes an exercise in increasing your contacts. But at the end of the day, you want to get the money for the house. I want to be paid for my effort. Yeah. And in order for that to happen, the buyer has to come to the party.
It actually sounds like a bit like how Facebook works, because as small business on Facebook don't exist for us, for small business. They exist for the consumer. They exist for people who want to watch, who want to look at the news feed, who wants to see, you know, stuff that be entertained, be informed, make laugh, see what their next door neighbour's cat's doing and whatever. But Facebook isn't there for us. They're there for those people. And we might be those people in our downtime, but when we're small business or when we're running our business on Facebook, if we're paying for advertising, if we're paying for, sort of a presence on Facebook, well, then Facebook actually needs us to generate the revenue. So even though we're not the primary customer for Facebook, they actually recognise that they do need us so that we can help sustain them by paying for ads and that type of thing. So it seems like a very similar relationship, because while they can't afford to, they don't want to make the platform not usable for the consumers, but they still have to cater for us, which would essentially be the buyers, because we're providing the money by buying their adverts. So
absolutely, that's an excellent analogy. I'm going to borrow it and pretend that I thought it up.
Yes, it was spread across the brilliant platform of Facebook with 2 billion people coming out of my mouth. But you can have it, Andrew.
Thank you.
No, I mean, you're more than welcome to borrow that analogy anytime, because I don't think there's probably a lot of similarities. So I'm just having a look here at some questions. I was going to ask, what I forgot to ask was, do you have any suggestions about how to pick an agent when you I know it's
well, absolutely. I'm certainly hoping that people pick the best looking agent that they can find, which case I'm in. But failing that, essentially it's somebody you connect with, somebody you trust. Because as I always say, selling a house is not difficult. The challenge is twofold. One is pricing it correctly, and two is getting the vendor to trust you to sell their house. So if there's no trust between the vendor and the agent, it's going to be a torturous relationship. So there's got to be trust, there's got to be transparency, there's got to be communication.
Yeah. So when I was going to say, because if you go by the criteria that you said before, so you're only actually picking good-looking vendors, obviously. So, and there is, I know, like I said, we talked to a few people, and you were actually quite, one of the things that got me with you, Andrew, was I don't know whether you did it on the way out or you came back by and popped a note in our letterbox, and I just thought, well, no one's ever done that. And here's another story. I was a member of a local gym for over 2 years, and I went religiously. I was there 6 times a week, almost part of the furniture, and I knew people by like the instructors, and I knew the owner. I knew them by name, and I had a really nice little community thing happening there. And for reasons which I won't go into now, I stopped going to the gym suddenly, and there wasn't even a phone call. And
that's remarkable, because I mean, you would know, being a good businesswoman, that your best market are your existing customers. If you hang on to your existing customers, you can grow it so much more efficiently from that base, rather than always chasing new blood.
Yeah. And interesting that you about that was, there was a girl that lives a couple of houses up from me that we would go together, and she came by one day and she said, oh, so and so, who is the morning instructor, because we go at stupid o'clock in the morning. I'm glad that's over. but she said, oh, so and so just asked me like where you were. So she's an instructor. She doesn't have a lot to do with the management. She just comes in the morning and does her stuff. And so she sort of asked through one of the girl I used to go with all the time. And so I guess that was like the next closest thing, but it wasn't even like, there was no personal contact from the gym to me. And you're right, retaining the customers and giving, like, to be able to, especially with Facebook like it is, if you've got a presence on Facebook and people can give reviews, and it's like Jay Bayer says, customer service is a spectator sport. So I could have jumped on there and given a very cruddy review, but I chose not to. But I just think it's just really quite interesting how that connection really is important. Absolutely important.
And feeding off that tale, which is a lovely story, because it segues nicely into what I was thinking about while you were talking, and that in real estate terms, when we have investors who buy houses and develop a relationship with the renter, and a lot of investors see renters as a pain in the proverbial, but what they should look at them as business partners, because the renter is helping you pay off your house. And it's so much better to have a consistent renter than to having a house which is vacated every few months, or every 6 months, or every 12 months, and then you might go a month without rent while you're trying to find a new renter, and that makes a big hole in your income. Whereas if you had a constant renter, it's a much easier path, and if you treat the renter right, they're worth their weight in gold. Yes.
I think that's absolutely correct. And we, like our investment property, we had rented that out for most of the time that we've had it, except the last few months. But we put it in the hands of a property manager, which is quite interesting, because it did end up causing a few issues. But I would still, if I did it again, and we probably will do it again, get another property manager, but definitely look at, like you said, treat them like partners rather than like because they're the ones that are, like you said, paying the mortgage. So that's pretty awesome. I just want to mention that Amber's my daughter here. She's popped in. This is my daughter and my grandson, my youngest grandson. I don't know if you can see on the screen there. She said hi.
Hello, Amber.
And gorgeous little Nate there. So she's popped in. So thanks for your support. It's really good to see that that the people that they are popping in and saying hi and joining us. So that's pretty awesome. So I did want to ask you also some questions about what your thoughts were about preparing a property for sale.
Well, I have a beautiful little story that I tell people when they ask me that question, and it's this: many years ago, in a different life, I was a school teacher, and it was in the 70s, and Star Wars had just come out, and was the biggest thing since sliced bread. And we had a couple of art students who came to the primary school where I was teaching, and they put on a 20-minute show with where they had a tie-dye backdrop and some whistles, and for 20 minutes they told the Star Wars story, and it went on, and all the children had paid 20 cents to see it. And after it finished, I was walking behind Frank, who was a little boy that I adored, and I remember him well, and his friend asked him, said, "Frank, what do you think of that?" And Frank said, "Oh, wasn't as good as the movie." So even though people when they come to see your property, they compare it to the best property they've seen somewhere else. Now, even though the best property might have been 4 million and your property is 400,000, they don't necessarily make that distinction. They say not as good as the other property, but they don't realize that they're looking at what they're paying for. So what you've got to do is ideally prepare your property to be much more valuable than it really is. So make it look the best you possibly can. There's no point, once again, because as I said, your emotional investment is your greatest investment in the project. So there's no point in beating yourself up in trying to make something that isn't there look substantially more than what it is. But all you can do is make it look the best you possibly can, and then just accept that that's what's happening and let it go at that.
Yeah. No, I think that's some great advice, because we just spent the weekend in the garden at the property and got a little bit more work to do there, but looking forward to getting that up and running. So awesome stuff. So like you said, make the best of it. I think sometimes you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, but you can definitely. You can definitely.
And you just remember that whatever state and condition your house is in, there's always somebody who's happy to buy it. I say that there are 3 price points. The first price point means I can sell your house 100 times in the first day, which tells me it's too cheap. The second price point is I can sell it in the first week to one person. Again, that tells me it's perhaps a bit too cheap. And the third price point is where I can take 3 months to sell it. And usually that's the right price point. So it's work for us. I mean, it's so easy to sell a house 100 times in the first day, but you're not doing your vendor any favors. And a question we always ask ourselves is, how does this suit the interests of the vendor? And if the answer is, oh, it doesn't really, we don't do it. It's got to suit the interests of the vendor, because that's who we're working for. And ethically, we're bound to serve the interests of the vendor. Yes.
Well, I, for one, am grateful.
Good.
Okay, that's awesome, Andrew. Then I'm gonna wind it up now. Did you have any comments or final points you wanted to make?
No. I just want to hire you as my full-time PR person.
I have actually had a couple of offers in recent times about that, so I'm going to have to rethink my career strategy, because it wasn't. I can. We'll have to talk about that, because we can have some fun. But this is definitely opening up a whole new world for people to be able to share with other people what their expertise and what their knowledge is, and to add value. And that's the whole purpose of me setting up the TV channel, MyTimeTV.LIVE, because it is an opportunity for small business owners to reach out into their local communities add value and get exposure with what they do, because it's such a massive opportunity right now, and it's like we've just reached the crest of the wave, and it's time to jump on board. I just acknowledge my good friend Joe Lockery from Rebel Web Solutions. Joe he's always there in the background. I don't know what I'd do without you, Joe. He's helped me troubleshoot many a times when I've had audio problems and just different things, especially with this platform. And you keep showing up. So Joe, let me know when you're on, and you have to come on and have a chat with us as well. It's really good to see you here, and thank you for your comments. Do appreciate that. So Rebel Web Solutions, shout out to you. I've got some notifications going there. So Andrew, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you and having you share your wisdom about selling houses, and from a buyer's perspective, or a vendor's perspective rather, and also from the real estate agent perspective, because I think that's something that we do often overlook, because we're, like you said, we get caught up in the emotive side and stuff, and whether it's a positive or a negative emotion, the emotion is still there. And I think even when we get to the point where you just go, oh, I don't want to have another open inspection, I think with your attitude and your calm wisdom, you can just encourage people just to keep going that next step, because I think that's what's...
Sure. Well, a final story, little story, if I may, about the emotion. I mean, emotion can rob you of a lot of money. We not so long ago sold a house, and we received an offer, and we advised the vendors to not accept it because we said we can do better. But that very reason, not wanting to prepare the house for another open, made the vendor say, no, I'll take this offer because it means I don't have to have any more opens, because she found the opens very emotionally draining. And the following week, in a few days later, we received an offer that was $50,000 more than the one that she had accepted. So it can be, but you know what price emotional stability?
Yes, exactly. Now I tell you, she probably would be crying now, but
no, she was very happy. She was very happy with the result, because the result was better than her expectations, but we knew we could do even better. Yes. And we told her that, but she didn't want to prepare for any more open inspections.
No, I can certainly understand that, and I think that story we'll take on board, because I suspect that we might be a bit the same, and we'll be guided by you, and we'll definitely listen to your advice. So, all right, well,
excellent.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Adaire.
See you later.
Bye.
Well, that was Andrew Tobin from Horizon Real Estate, and I'm Adaire Palmer on MyTimeTV.LIVE. Look forward to seeing you more and more as we get the channel up and running, so that we will have a range of special guests or special presenters on for you. So just stay tuned and look out for your notifications. Just go and actually get notifications for when we're live, because there's going to be a whole range of exciting shows coming up. On that note, enjoy the rest of your day today, and we'll see you next time we see you. Bye for now.